Yes,
Bogdanov, he did it.
he bought,
He went to all in.
dump it.
Welcome Bitcoin friends, I'm Bitcoin Mamo. Today we're going to do some Bitcoin technical analysis, look at the current drop that we've had over the past day, and also some possible levels that we might reach with the drop, and we'll look at my current trade and just some general analysis of the Bitcoin charts. I just want to start with a video that I made a couple of days ago before we had this drop, just to show you what I was looking at and how it played out after that. So just looking at the volume here, we can see that the volume matches this triangle pattern. We're getting descending volume. And if we just look at the end point, sort of lines up here with the end of this triangle pattern. So this is a valid pattern. We're getting the descending volume. And usually these patterns tend to break out around 75% into this triangle. So we're basically almost there now. Within this next week, we're probably going to see a breakout. I think we might come up, get one more quick touch up at the top of this line. People might be doing a breakout trade here. Maybe it will break up briefly like this and then come back down just to catch those people out. And then we'll probably come back down and then have a crash down. It might not happen straight away. We might get a bounce here at the 38.2. So it might be sort of a staircase down. So that was just a video on my prediction from a few days ago. And we just look at the charts now, we can see sort of what happened. So just looking at the daily chart now, we can see we did come up to the top of this triangle, had a fake breakout, and then we came back down, went to the bottom, and then we did break the bottom of this triangle, and that caused this massive dump down. We are having a small bounce now, but I do believe the move isn't over. We haven't filled the CME gap yet. So I just had this predicted target here, drawing from the top to the bottom of this triangle. Just put it at the breakout level. And we can see it comes down to around this 96.80 level, which is also where the 200-week exponential moving average is on the daily. So I think this is the target that we will probably hit. We might drop a little bit further, but I do expect a bounce here. So if we just zoom out a little bit further, we can see the 200 moving average on the daily is all the way down here at 90.68. So I think this would possibly be the lowest level that we'll go to. I think we will bounce off one of these. And just looking at the descending volume from this triangle, we did have a breakout with the volume. It was a larger candle. So this is a valid breakout, and I don't think we're coming back up into the triangle anytime soon. So I can see the drop in the Bitcoin price coincided with a drop in the stock market. So this is the S&P 500. We did have this big dump here. We just do a measured move of that. We can see it was about a 4.5% dump. And we did have this massive volume candle here. And if we just look back here, this is on the daily, we can see how high this volume candle actually was. So this was the big stock market crash back in March. We can see the level that the volume was getting to, and we had more volume on this one day here than during the actual crash in the stock market. So very significant amount of volume here. Perhaps we could come down further. I'm not an expert on reading stock market charts, more on Bitcoin. But yeah, this candle really does stand out. Perhaps if we go to the weekly and just see the volume on the week, we can see this week hasn't finished yet. We've still got one more day before the weekend, and pretty much on the weekly, the volume isn't quite as high as the stock market crash, but in a one day candle it is. We do have this doji candle forming so far, which can indicate turnarounds on markets after a run up, could indicate that it's coming back down. So that's something to watch, especially looking at Bitcoin, looking at the stock market at the same time. They do work together quite often, so it's a good indicator to watch to see what Bitcoin might do also. But just looking at a longer term picture of the Bitcoin price, this is the big run up from 2017. We had this big triangle that we were in, and you can see we broke above the triangle. We had quite a big run up, and now we've had this crash down. So quite often when you break a major trend line like this, we will come back down and retest the trend line before taking off again. So if that does happen over the next couple of days, that would take us down to a level of around 9100, 9120. So it's possible that Bitcoin could come all the way down to here. We've also broken the daily EMA ribbon, so perhaps we will come back up and test the top of this ribbon as time goes on, and then have another breakdown. This orange line that I've got drawn is the level where we were getting resistance in the past, and which some people thought would act as support, but I didn't believe that it would. I thought we would break through, and currently we're coming back up to test that line, and at the moment it is acting as resistance. But if we get above here, perhaps we might hold this line, but I don't think that we will. I think this is probably where we're going to top out and go sideways maybe, or have the rest of the drop sometime on this Friday or over the weekend. So we just go onto the weekly chart and look at the EMA ribbon on the weekly chart. We can see that if we do have this drop down, we'll probably get supported on this weekly ribbon. The lowest point on this ribbon is 89.66. So I definitely don't think we'll break this ribbon, but I don't think we'll quite get to the bottom either. You can see that we did, where we dropped down was actually the top of this ribbon, pretty much spot on at 10,000. So it did act as support, but I don't know if it will hold as support. I think eventually we'll come into the ribbon a little bit, get a retest of this line. At the futures chart now on the daily, we've broken the ribbon obviously on the daily as well. This is where the gap is, down at 96.70, 96.80. And you can see we're probably going to come down and fill this gap, and probably wick down a bit lower also. Just because we fill the gap doesn't mean we have to go straight back up again. So just looking at the price difference between the spot price and the Bitcoin futures price, at the moment it's pretty much the same. It's just a $40 difference between them. So it's just good to watch that to see when we fill the gap if there is a price difference and we can get the spot price right. So when we did have that big drop, there was actually a $600 price difference at one point, while the futures price did catch up. So just looking again at the S&P 500, this is the futures chart. So this is open at the moment while the S&P 500 is closed. And at the moment we are staying steady, we aren't having a drop. So this can be a good indicator to what's going to happen when the market opens, the stock market, and also what's going to happen with Bitcoin when the stock market does open also. This is the CME futures chart, and basically the futures started around the end of 2017. So I'm just getting the bounce back after that initial drop from the all-time high with the spot price, and just catching the top of that and the top here. And just looking at this chart in this way, we haven't actually broken this triangle pattern on this futures chart. So I did make this chart back in August 17th of this year, and I'll just play out what's happened so far. So you can see we got rejected on the top of this triangle, and we have come down, and we are sort of coming to meet this weekly EMA ribbon and filling this gap. And also, I'll just zoom in a little bit here. We can see that this line upward trend of support is coming up to meet this gap level. So this is the weekly. So within the next couple of weeks, I think we'll definitely drop and close this gap. And if we do have the drop by the end of this weekend, then the bottom of this trend line is around 95.50. So just looking at the weekly chart again, we can see that we did bounce on this EMA ribbon. And just to show how significant the ribbon is, just looking back in the past bull market, the one before the current one we're entering, we can see as we did break up above this ribbon, when we pretty much always came back down to test it. So you can see on this first retest, we did get support pretty much at the top of the ribbon and then carried on in a sideways pattern before we had another bounce. This was quite a big run up here, similar to what we have had recently. And we can see this time we came all the way down near the bottom of the ribbon and acted as support. So in bull markets, this happens quite often. We have a big run up, come back to test the ribbon. Here we came off the top. And pretty much this happens all the way up during the bull market until we do break the ribbon and it starts the bear market. So just looking at the current Bitcoin price, this is that level that major level that was resistance in the past is currently being tested. We are getting some resistance here. And I've just drawn the fib retracement from the bottom where we crashed down to last night to the top of this pattern here, and this coincides with this 38.2 level. So it is possible that maybe we will come to the 61.8, but I think we might get rejected here, maybe go sideways or start the downtrend again. So just looking on the 4-hour chart, we can see the yellow line here is the 50 exponential moving average, and the red line is the 200 exponential moving average, and this is on at the 4-hour. And we can see we're almost having this death cross between the yellow and the red line. So basically when the 50 exponential moving average crosses below the 200 exponential moving average, it's known as a death cross. So I think maybe in the next 4-hour candle, perhaps this cross will happen and it might trigger the next downfall. So how am I planning on trading this? Well, I am currently trying to put in a short here at the 10,500 level just to catch this breakdown back down, and then I'll go long in these lower levels, just some of the levels that I mentioned. So if we just do the Fibonacci retracement all the way from the bottom here to the top, we can see the 61.8 between the 65 and 61.8, the golden pocket area, is a level where I think we're possibly going to have the bounce. So I have started layering orders, buy orders around this level, and I do have more orders down here in case we do drop lower. Perhaps we could come all the way down to this 78.6. As I mentioned earlier, that 9-1 sort of range could be a possible drop level. If we just pull up the 200-day moving average, we can see that's pretty much almost coincides with the 786 level. So I think we will bounce off one of these, either this level here or this level here with a wick. So I have layered my trades here all the way down, and hopefully we come down here to get the bounce. I'll be happy if we just bounce here and I just get some of these trades in and don't have to stress with the drop down, but we'll see what happens. So just one more thing I want to show you. We're looking at the RSI here. This is on the weekly time frame. So I've just got this orange line drawn at the 55 level. So if we zoom out and look at the previous bull market here, we can basically see that we would come above this level, come back down and test it, and pretty much bounce off this level. And we did this multiple times during the last bull market. So I think this is a key level on the RSI, this 50, 53, 55 level. We pretty much bounced off it all the way until once we broke it, that was the end of the bull run, and we started the bear market. And you can see it acted as resistance then quite a few times, and then we broke it here early on, but now we've been going up and down in it. So basically we are coming down to meet this line now. So we are sitting at approximately 56 on the RSI. So perhaps we can have the rest of the drop this week come down to touch this line, could come all the way down to 52, and then get a bounce maybe at the start of next week. after we do close that gap, perhaps come down to this line. So just to sum up, I think the lowest we'll go is probably 92, 9,000. The bottom of this ribbon is the absolute lowest. But I do think we'll probably bounce off this trend line closer to 9,100. We don't have to come all the way down there. I think we can just close the gap and have a bounce then even. But I think to be safe, that's why I've layered my trades all the way down to 9,100 just to catch this full bounce. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that analysis. And there's some exciting moves ahead to come for Bitcoin. And happy trading. Thanks. Bye.
You characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money.
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that.
There is no end to our ability to do that.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my account and realize there's nothing left. Cause bankers been printing and inflating so long that even my mama knows that my savings gone. But I ain't ever crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Banks treating them like punks, you know that's unheard of. You better watch out which currency you're holding, or you and your money might be lying in chalk. I really hate this shit, but I got no hope. As they prayed, I see my savings going up in smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of normie no savers wanna be like on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light. Been spending most our lives living in a bankster's paradise. Been spending most our lives living in a bankster's paradise. Kids spending most our lives living in a bankster's paradise. Kids spending most our lives living in a bankster's paradise. Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life.
Characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money.
Yes, exactly.